Okay.
I keep
So we'll,
forget.
sorry, go ahead.
No, no, nothing. I usually keep forgetting the previous class and all. Like if we talk about tuple, then I will forget.
So we'll talk about recursive functions. Recursive functions are functions that calls itself. So we've been seeing how, like let's, so like what we have been doing so far was creating a function like this. Okay. And let's say I'm saying some number or something, right? And here I say print number, right? And you call this function here, my func, right? And you say 100. So when you call this, okay, of course, first line to get executed is line number 4, my func. This is how you're calling the function, isn't it? And this calls this function definition. Function definition has just one line, which is print number. It prints the number, okay, which is probably good. But there are some situations where you have the function can call, or you can implement in a better way if the function calls itself. So for example, the most common example we talk about when we talk about recursive function. Okay, so I say the topic is recursive function. Function. So so let's say we try to calculate 5 factorial, right? So now if you say 5 factorial, 5 factorial is what? 5 into 4 factorial, right? You can write 5 factorial as 5 into 4 factorial, isn't it? Right?
Look at this.
And
Yes.
if you're planning to write a function, okay, for factorial, you will say, if you are talking about factorial something like this, and if you are saying factorial n is what? It is it's about return n into
Minus one.
factorial n minus 1, right? So let me put, okay, it is something like this, right? So okay, let me define it as a function, right? So what we have done, we have saying factorial n is nothing but n into factorial n minus 1, right? So when you take n, it is n into n minus 1. If you take 10 becomes 10 into 9 factorial. It goes up. We're calling itself, right? Same name. So we are calling, function is calling itself. That's why we call it as recursive function. Okay. So you're calling factorial n minus 1. Now, when you say factorial n minus 1, okay, um, your n becomes 9 here, right? So since in return you already have 10, now into n minus n is 9, so it becomes 9 into 8. It goes here, this is 8, so it becomes 8 into 7. It goes here, you have, sorry for the disturbance. I keep forgetting to disable WhatsApp. Okay. So you have n into, so it becomes 8 into 7, right? And then n minus 1 becomes 7, and so n becomes now 7. So it goes on, okay. But after some point, right, like for 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 factorial into 1 factorial, and you need to stop at 1 factorial, right? If you do not stop, it becomes like, 1 into 0 factorial, 0 into minus 1 factorial, so on. Now, so if you see this, okay, so I'll say print number, and now I will say my func. I'm calling my func again, and I'm passing number minus 1, let's say. Okay, so this function has to be initiated first, right? So this is getting initiated by line number 6. I'm calling my func, and I'm passing 100 to it, right? Now let's run and see what happens. So you see, We passed 100, so it's calling 100, and now it prints 100. Now we are saying -1, so 99, it goes here. Function is again called by itself. Okay, so 99. So print 99. Again, it comes down. Again, it becomes 98 and goes up. Right? So that's how it becomes recursive. And function is calling itself. It never comes back to line number 6. It never comes back to line number 6 in this case. Okay. Right? It never comes back to 6. It keeps on going. And there's a maximum depth that it can go. Okay, so that's why it stopped here, because the memory can hold only that much values. So after almost like 1000, it stopped. Okay, it says maximum recursion depth reached. Okay, but that's how you generally it works, right? So what we need to do is we need to have some kind of stopping condition here, isn't it? So stopping condition is if number is less than 0, when you reach negative number, or let's say when number less than 1, then you say return 0. Return 0 means I'm now returning back to my function. So now when you run this case, you will get, if said 100 starts from 100, and the moment it it prints 1, and then it says my function 1 minus 1 0, it goes to 0. Now number is less than 1, right? So it stops here. It will not go any further down. So when you are writing recursive function is a situation, okay, or it's kind of logic. So you can't implement that for all kinds of business rules, but where you can take advantage of function calling itself. So you're doing, like as I said, right here, you are adding first 10 numbers. So you're taking a number, adding to itself, taking a number, adding to itself, taking a number, adding to itself. So it's a recursive process. Okay, factorial is a recursive process. You are multiplying like n-1 to n-1 to n-1, so on, right? So it's a recursive. So these are situations where you can use this function, and this is how you use it. Okay, so it will have at least one ending condition, otherwise it will go into infinite kind of recursion, right? And of course your program, I mean, that's not what we want, right? We want to stop at some point, correct? So here in factorial, what I can say is, if it reaches 0 or if it reaches -1, then we return 1, right? Factorial of 1 or 0 is 1. At last, we want to return 1. So we can say here in factorial, now I'll call the same value here, okay? So my function, I will say factorial and 100, okay? Or let's do with 5 small numbers so that we can evaluate. 100 will be very big number. Okay, so factorial 5. Okay, so return. Okay, and I will check the value. If n is less than 1, then you say return 1. Factorial of 0 or anything is 1. So this is my stopping condition. This is where I want to stop. So now this is return, so I can catch the value here, right? So I'm going to say fact equal to, and then I can print here saying factorial is fact. What is 5 factorial? 5 into 4, 20 into 3, 60 into 2, 120, right? So is 120. So this is called a recursive function. Okay, situations where it is required, you can use it. Fine. Pavni, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Now, next, what we'll see is how to write modules. See, I don't know, I think we have used some module, right? Module is where you have functions written in a different file, okay, and by somebody else, and you are using it. For example, let's say I've written this file. I've written these two functions, my func and factorial, and I want you to use it, right? Why? To rewrite the code. Okay, I say, okay, I have written this function, use it in your program. So you'll say, okay, give me the file. So I pass P1 to you. So now you have P1 here, and let's say you're doing programming in P2, right? Or rather, what I'll do is I'll move this to P2, okay? And then we'll try to use P2 here. So let's say P2 is a file that you give it to me, okay? And my program is in P1. I will put it in the same location where P1 is, okay? I'll paste it. So anyway, that is done. Now, if I have to use your P2 function, I have to use something called as import. Okay, import is a way to import functions. Okay, so module is basically a file, .py file. Module is a file which has multiple functions. That's all. So when you see here module is a Python program or Python file which has multiple functions. So again, if you remember, we use random when we're talking about while loop, right? We played a game. We made a game where we thought of a number and then we repeated, by machine thinking of a random number, right? So we used import random, right? And random had function like rand int. These are the functions which are there. V for it's the return type, and random int will give you the random integer, right? If you remember, we did that, right? So these are inbuilt modules. Okay, we can create our own module. So P2 is, let's say, our own module. So I can say import P2. Okay, I said import P2. Now if I say P2 dot, okay, you see factorial, fact, my function. These are your functions and variables which are accessible to us. F4 functions, V4 variables, right? So we have these members of P2 available to us. Yes. So now let's say if you have done the factorial, I can call this P2, okay, and I can say P2 dot factorial, and I can say 6, and I'll have to save this number somewhere, right? So I'll go and I say result. Now, before we do the result thing, I want to show you what happens when you import P2. Okay, so I've imported P2. Let me run P1. So see, when I say import, P2 file is executed, is run. Since we have added all these things here, right? It got run here. Okay, now we don't want, you have done it, you have practiced, you have run those programs, but I don't want to run your code. I want to call my own factory. I don't want to do all the work that you have done. So there's an option called as name equal to main. Okay, so when you go to P2, now again, see, now we are getting, so we have done with the logic. Okay, so the logic was only up to your for loop, while loop, and we learned about data structure. Okay, now what we are doing by learning functions, by learning class and objects, we are learning the right way of doing programs. Okay, so functions and your class and objects, okay, is just a concept of putting or doing a right way of doing. What we've been doing so far before we did functions were more of learning the logic. Now we are putting them together and programming like a professional, like how a expert would program. Okay, so when you're writing these functions, so you have to, like, you want your programs to be reusable, right? You want your programs, your functions to be reused. You might reuse again in the future, right? Let's say I've written a function for factorial. If I need a factorial function again in future, why will I write again? I can reuse my previous code, isn't it? So you always, you put them, okay, in a file, okay, just like this, okay, and what we call as module, and all these things that you're executing it, Okay. Okay, so define the functions, and this is where I'm using it, right? All these things, you put it in something called as a name equal to main. Okay, so if I say if underscore underscore name underscore underscore, if name underscore underscore name underscore underscore equal to, okay, quotation underscore underscore main
Papa.
underscore underscore.
There was written Renault here. Renault was.
Okay. So you have name equal to main. Okay. Then inside this else, you write your logic of execution. So, so what this does is, okay, of course, right? If name is main, that's when you these lines will execute. Otherwise, these lines will not execute, correct? So if I'm going to run this P2 directly, when I say run P2, then these things will run. Okay. So if you are executing P2 directly, this conditions becomes true. Name equal to main. Main means that, you know, you're running the program, and if you're running the same file, if you're running P2 file, then this becomes true. Okay. And this will get executed. But if you're running P1 and using P1, if you're trying to call P2, see, those things are not executed. Right? So always, okay, probably the first way of programming you're learning, first expert way of programming, okay, is that you have your functions defined above, and all the logic you are doing to execute the function, you put it here as name equal to main. Okay, and you can keep on writing your program, and when you call P2, it all executes as fine. Okay, there's no error. But when I take your P2, these things are not executed because I'm not interested in these things, right? I'm more interested in the functions because I want to use your function. You have already put in effort of writing the function, so I want to use it, right? So I'll go to P1 and I'll say import P2. Now when you execute it, name is not main. Name is not main. Okay, to test that if it is main or not, you go and say else. And you say print, oh, I am being called by someone else. Okay. Now when you run P2, okay, this else part is not called. See, else part is not called. Only the if part is called, right? Because you're calling the same function. Now when I go and run P2, or sorry, P1, okay, see, else part is called, right? So else part is called only when somebody else, some other POI file calls this. So you are importing module or importing that Python file, that's when this else part will call. Okay, generally we don't write anything in else because we don't want to disturb somebody else's program, right?
Oh, I actually did not understand actually.
What you do not
What
understand?
you don't
Tell me.
understand?
So this is in like main, right? I mean,
Correct.
this is in P2.
This is like main. Okay.
Yeah.
Main
So this
means
is
Main means
correct. Main means if you directly call this file, main is in P2.
main is in
So,
P2.
so if you call
If you
P2
call
directly, this condition will be true. If you call
okay.
from some other file, this will become false. And then, you know, of course, the inside thing will not be called.
Okay. So main is like main function.
Here it's not a function, it's a name you can say.
So if I want to use this function in like P1,
No, so for P1, the P1 for P1, the main name is something else. See, for P1, main is P1. Okay. So P1, I can
I can
call something like
call
this.
this.
Okay. So for
Okay. So
P1, if you call P1 directly,
P1
the name is main for P1.
P1.
okay.
So when I run P1 directly, okay, this will be called. Okay, 720 is the answer. But let's say from eSlate, if I call P1, From ESLate, I'm calling P1, right? So it will go and check, okay, no, this is no longer main now, right? I'm calling from somewhere else, not from P1 directly, right? So now if I call this, okay, it is this part which is getting called, okay? This portion is not at all called. But if I don't write this, right, and if I mention this, then this will be called from outside P1 also. You see, 720 is getting called here.
Read it when your meeting is done.
Okay, did you understand now?
So I understand the second part, but not the main part. I'm sorry.
What is the second part?
That P2 dot function we are calling, right? That part only I understand. Like import P2 and then we are calling the function that we want. So
See.
that main thing,
See.
we
No, no, see. If I come to your home and I say, I want water, right? So what does that mean? It means that I want water from your home or my home, if I'm standing at your home.
Your home.
from my home only.
Correct? If I stand
It
in front of,
It means you want water from their home.
sorry about that. Now, if I stand in front of my home and if I say I want water, then what does that mean?
You want water from your own home.
I want water
just-
from my home only.
No, if I'm standing in front of my home, then I want water from my home, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is like this. So if you put main here, name equal to main, okay, it means that this will be called only when you're calling this file. This is like I'm asking water. So if I'm asking water here, give me water, okay,
Mm.
then if I'm doing it, if I'm calling P2, then this P2 will be called. Then this will be called.
Okay.
But if I'm calling from P1, then this will not be executed because you do have water, you do have water, but that doesn't mean that I want water from you.
So you are restricting this function to be used exclusively only to this file. It cannot be imported to other file. That's what you mean?
Exactly. Okay, but I want to change the language that it's not imported, it's executed. Okay, it's not a function, so it's not will execute. I mean, it's not a function, so it's not imported, but it will not get executed. You're right. I'm restricting it. That means if you call from this file only, this will be called. If you call from somewhere else, this will not be called. And see, these functions are outside if. Okay, these functions are outside if. So this will be, yeah, so this is available to all.
Okay. Okay, I understood. Yeah.
Right? Yes. So if you call P2, this will be accessible. Otherwise, this is not accessible. Similarly, if I put the if here, that means these two lines will be called only if I'm calling from P1. Otherwise, these two lines will not be called. Right? So now when I'm calling P2, import P2, this portion is not getting called. That's why, I don't get to see all those, print stuff. I'm only focusing on what I have here for my stuff.
Just again a bit confusing. So in this if condition, that result equal to P2 dot factorial 6 print result, right?
Uh-huh.
So that function we cannot use it now, right? Because
Why? That function is outside, no? Outside if.
oh, okay. Sorry.
Right?
Okay. Okay.
Correct? So it is available to you. See, this is function definition, calling. Okay. Calling is inside if. That's why calling is, if function is not called. It's only definition which is outside if.
Yeah. This factorial is outside if only. I saw that now.
Correct.
Yeah, I got confused. Yeah. So we used it in that P1. Can you go to P1 once?
Oh, yes.
Sorry.
No problem.
So we called it in main now, right?
Uh-huh.
So
So if you run P1, there's no impact, there's no effect. It is as if this is not there. If you call P1, this will be true. So as if this is not there. But if I call from some other file, then it makes sense. Then these things will not be called. If I call P1 from eSlate, then these things will not be called, right?
So if we call from P2 directly, then it can be called
Yes.
from eSlate.
Yeah. No. Just sorry. From eSlate, I can call P2. So if I call P2, then it's between eSlate and P2. Then P1 has no role to play. See,
Okay.
you can call, any of these can call from anywhere,
Okay.
right? So if I import P2, then all the functions from P2 is available to me.
Okay.
If I call digital, then all the digital thing is available to me.
Yeah. I'm back to passengers.
Make sense now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this
Yeah.
statement that you have mentioned in this P1 file.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the meaning of this? Like P2 dot factorial, we are importing it from P2 and we are restricting it only to this file.
Correct. The call is restricted only to this file.
So what is the meaning of this? I did not understand it actually. Like
I didn't get. So meaning means what?
so we can call that factorial function from anywhere, right? We can call it into import P2 in SLate function also, right? In
Yes.
SLate file also, right?
Yes.
So here you call that function and you are restricting it to this file. What is the meaning of that one? So it can be called from any
See,
file, right?
it is like your private property and public property. Whatever you have inside is your private property. Okay. And what is outside if is your public property. So whatever you do before if, I can call it from anywhere else. Okay. It's like putting a water can inside your home and outside your home. Okay. So this is your home. This is home of whom? P1. Okay. So this is your P1 file, right? So this is your home, and these are the things that you're putting outside your home, and these are things that are putting inside your home. Inside your home, only you have the access. But outside your home stuff, everybody else can have access to. Did you get it now?
Yes.
If we call that factorial function from SLate, will it be executed from P2? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, if I want to use the factorial function from P1, that cannot be used, right? That means?
Because P1 does not have factorial, right? Factorial is in P2 only. So eSlate has to call P2 to get factorial.
Okay.
Correct?
Okay.
So treat this like your private stuff and public stuff. It is all your only, but you have left it out for others to use. But you don't want others to use this. That's what it means. This is something which are private, even though all is owned by you, but you are not putting outside. Okay? If you put a chair outside, everybody can see the chair. But if you put your chair inside the drawing room, only those who have access can only see it.
Yeah, I kind of understood. So that is okay.
Yes. Of course, when you practice it, You'll see it when you try to create your own module, you'll understand. Okay. So, okay, you can rename the module. Let's say import P2. Okay. And see, when you say import P2, then P2 dot, okay, everything is available. Okay. Now, let's say you don't want all the three things to be available, right? You want only factorial function to come, not fact and others. So what you can do here is, instead of saying import P2, you will say, okay, you will say from P2 import factorial. Import P2 means you are saying, okay, give me everything from P2. Give me everything from P2. I will use it. But from P2 import factorial, you are saying, okay, I want from P2, but I don't want everything. I want only factorial.
Again, it fell down.
In this case, you see, there's an error here. Because we are not importing P2, we are saying factorial. So factorial is now used as if factorial is written in this same function. It's a different way of accessing. Here, since I've imported factorial, only factorial is available to me, not everything else. Okay. Make sense?
Yeah. So
Another way
what
of
is that?
doing it.
Okay. So you said it's showing error, right? What is error? I actually missed that part.
No. Earlier we had P2 dot, right?
Okay.
Okay.
So
Now
we
P2
don't
is not, yeah, now P2 is not there. I'm saying from P2, get me only factorial. I don't care about everything else, what is there in the P2. So you are only importing one. You can say, you can import other things. You can say comma and you can keep on importing. Okay, you can say factorial. Now let's say P2 might have 100 functions. You don't want your file to link to all the 100 functions. It will slow down your performance of your program. So you say, okay, out of 100, I'm interested in only 3. So I will call only 3. I'm not interested in rest.
Yeah.
Okay, this is one way. There's another way, or call it as aliasing. Alias means what? You know, let's say I want to say P2 only, but I don't like the name P2. Okay, I'll say as P. So it's giving an alias.
So I have to
Okay, so here it will be P dot, not P2 dot. It's like you are renaming it. So you can use import, you can say import as, or you would say from P2 import. Okay, there are three different ways of importing our module. Okay, and we will use all these three things when we go ahead. Okay, when we talk about machine learning data science, we'll use these things.